On behalf of Gannon University, I welcome our speaker for the fall 2023 Loftus Lecture on Catholic Thought and Action, Sister Rose Pacatte.
Thank you so much, Dom. It's so great to be here with you this evening, and I hope we'll have a good time. The first thing I need to acknowledge is the gentleman who's here with the exorcist socks or tennis shoes. Where are you? There he is, back there. He's got shoes, tennis shoes, that are exorcist tennis shoes. I think that it was really nice of you to come dressed for the occasion. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. And of course, when I go out on Halloween, cars honk because they think I'm just dressed up as a nun. Happens all the time. So anyway, it's really so nice to be here with Dom. I'll do a presentation, for a little bit, and then Dom and I will have a conversation. And if you have any questions, I hope that you'll feel free to ask them. And there's some good clips in here. Can we lower the lights during the clips, or will they show up okay? Do you think? I forgot to ask that before. Can we lower the lights during the clips, or just the front row, maybe? Okay. So our horror film's Catholic. Let's go on this little lovely scare fest of a journey.
Tell me when you found it. Come here, Chris, look at me.
Found it.
Where was your mom?
She was coming home. She wasn't home.
From work? And what did you do?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I just sat there.
You didn't call anyone?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. I just thought that if I did, it'd make it real.
You're so scared. You think it was your fault? How do you feel now?
I can't move.
You can't move.
Why can't I move?
You're paralyzed. Just like that day when you did nothing. You did nothing. Now, sink into the floor.
Wait.
Sink. Now you're in the sunken place.
that's from the film Get Out. If you haven't seen it, put it on your list, please. This evening we'll have clips from most of the films that you're seeing in front of you now. It, a Stephen King horror film. The Pope's Exorcist we don't have, but that's Russell Crowe there having a moment. The Passion of the Christ, which I think can only be understood well when you consider it as a horror film. It has all of the components and elements of horror and then The Nun 1 and The Nun 2. I got to go to Mexico City for the International Press event in 2017 for The Nun. And that's when I found out from a director, because it was so thin on Catholicism, if he had actually done some research or if he just watched all the other exorcism movies. Guess what he said? Just watched all the other exorcism movies. And that's going to be one of the downsides of finding Catholicism in horror movies, is when the filmmakers are lazy. That's the downside. They're just doing it for a buck. So we have, there's a couple more coming too that we'll see, but these are representative here. We have to not give a nod, of course, to The Exorcist. It's the 50th anniversary of this incredible film that Pauline Kael called the best advertisement for the Catholic Church in the history of cinema. And she was Jewish, I believe. She thought it was a superficial film, but not being Catholic, she probably didn't appreciate everything. But she did appreciate how powerful it was and people's response to it. We have a clip from that tonight and some comments about the new one. We're supposed to wait. I'll press it again just in case.
What an excellent day for an exorcism. Against the devil. You know what he did?
The power of Christ compels you! Lift me! The Exorcist.
I had a chance to meet Jason Miller, who played the priest in The Exorcist. This is back around 1985 in Charleston, South Carolina. I was coming out of our bookstore during the Piccolo Spoleto Festival. It's an arts festival. And I was going on an errand, and I was closing the door, and he said to me, "Sister, I'm Jason Miller. I played the priest in The Exorcist." And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, right, and I'm Mother Teresa." And he looked so hurt. Afterwards, when I found out that was really him, then it was too late. But anyway. So what is horror? Well, first of all, just by a raise your hand, how many of you appreciate horror films? Notice I didn't use the word like, because I don't especially like them. I appreciate them. I fell into specializing in a way. I'm not a complete academic or specialist in the area, but because there's so much in it that is Catholic, at least that I found, I thought it deserved commentary. And Father Peter Malone, we co-authored 5 books together on scripture and film. And you're reading this, and so I don't really want to repeat it, but as you can see, horror comes from the threat and menace from the natural. The sources of horror are not really readily explained, whereas terror films can be. That's his distinction. He also, the supernatural. The role of the supernatural is what he separates horror and terror. We share the terror but are aghast at the horror. Audience relish the tantalizing attraction of, at least for the running time of the film, having a Darth Vader experience of going over to the dark side. Anyone who refuses to acknowledge the dark side becomes its, and there is a good danger of rigid individuals and groups who, as was once said, have and demand that others have a Pollyanna approach to life, a sunny denial of evil in the world, and a potential to be scandalized and shocked at finding it in them. Horror films can reflect back to us our dark side, because we all have it to a certain extent. We know we all deal with that in the spiritual life. So here are some explanations or categorizations, if you will, of horror. It's a genre, but it's also a subgenre, category, or type of film. It deals with the supernatural, the natural and the supernatural. It can have elements of psychological and physical terror. It can also have humor. You've all seen Shaun of the Dead, I'm sure. No? Okay, if someone's smiling, okay. If you don't want to raise your hand, it's always okay. There might be some realism, there might be elements of fantasy. It could be your worst nightmare, and it probably has supernatural elements. So my first horror movie, I saw it when I was 7 years old on Christmas Day. My dad was home from being overseas in the Navy, and he wasn't Catholic, but he told my Catholic mother that he wanted my younger brother and I, my older brother, to be able to go to the movies on Christmas. And she was not happy. And he said, pick your own movie. So my 6-year-old brother and I picked House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price. Oh, I see some heads nodding. And my dad and my older brother went to see the 10 Commandments. So we had to wait like 2 hours for them to come pick us up. We're just little kids. We didn't even have popcorn money. Okay. So let's define our terms. What is a horror film? Is it Catholic? Is it big C, Catholic, little c? So is it a niche audience? I don't know. They make so much money, I think there's a really big audience for horror. Horror also has to do with our expectations. We like it according to what we expect from it. We're disappointed when our expectations are not met. There is certainly an appeal to a pre-existing audience. When they made The Pope's Exorcist this year, I happened to know one of the executive producers and one of the producers, and I got to read the early script, like the first 3 versions of it, and then it just got to be a little old. But you could see that they were playing to the audience. And one of the things that I complain about the most with horror is they just go the easiest way, and they use suicide as a way for the devil to come in, because the church has condemned suicide. But as of 1940, I think, the church lifted that and clarified its teaching on mercy and no longer, punished the dead, shall we say, for for the end of their life. So, but they still use that trope, and it just doesn't work. And they were doing it in The Pope's Exorcist. Anybody see it? It's on Netflix now. For 2 weeks, it was their top movie on Netflix with that. Anyway, I complained about it. Instead of the suicide, they used the Inquisition as the entry point of the devil into the story. And I said, finally, a little innovation, even though, I don't know, the Inquisition, well, that was the first time for me on that one. Deals with issues that mainstream film often won't deal with, and won't deal with it in the same way. Why do people go to the movies in the first place? People who bought popcorn when they went to see The Passion of the Christ, many of them didn't eat it because it wasn't a popcorn movie. Horror can be a popcorn movie because you want to do anything to deal with what you're seeing, right? We go to be entertained mostly. We go to be informed sometimes. But horror, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And a lot of people go, as we'll see later on, because they're already scared. Otherwise, why would you go? And you want to put some kind of a frame on it. You want it to end. The mythic battle between good and evil, and we deal with it in our everyday life. Or why do people go? That was Wes Craven, by the way. I was at a film festival in Los Angeles, a Christian film festival, and he was there. And Scott Derrickson, who made The Exorcism of Emily Rose, he was interviewing Wes Craven, and that's what he said. People go because they're already scared. Now here is the negative part of horror. These are some subgenre, and I don't even want to watch them. I did watch Machete Kills because there's a nun in it. Don't see it because there's a nun in it. Science fiction can have horror elements. The Gothic, of course. Okay. Art, Nosferatu is one of the most famous and really very Catholic in its orientation. The Chainsaw Massacre. Terror. Now let's take a look at this from Stephen King.
Hiya, Georgie. What a nice boat. Do you want it back?
Yes, please.
You look like a nice boy. Do you want a balloon too, Georgie?
I'm not supposed to take stuff from strangers.
Oh, well, I'm Pennywise the dancing clown. Now we aren't strangers, are we?
I should get going now.
Without your boat? Here. Take it.
Guys!
Don't tell me that's...
No. Georgie wore galoshes.
Whose sneaker is it? It's Betty Ripsom's.
What if she's still here?
Eddie, come on! My mom will have an aneurysm, okay? If she finds out that we're playing down here, I'm serious. Bill?
If I was Betty Ripsom, I would want us to find them. Georgie, too.
What if I don't want to find them? I mean, no offense, Bill, but I don't want to end up like... I don't want to go missing either.
We'll move on. Otherwise, you'll think it's only that movie. But if you see that movie, there's so much social justice and the treatment of children that's involved and how children are treated even at homes. It's a tough movie to watch, but I think it's really one of the better ones. So what scares us most is what we see, but also what we don't see and what we hear. I think the hearing is very much a part of horror. The images, of course. Editing is very, very important to horror. I was just talking at lunch, and we were talking about Hitchcock and his editing, and it was remarkable what he could do just by the cuts that he made. This is in Stephen King. One of the children that goes searching for the little boy is a girl. She's in the story, and what happens to her is, to me, the most profound, difficult, and even supernatural part of the film. And then clowns. I still don't know why people are afraid of clowns. Barbara Hall, who made the TV show Judging Amy and Madam President, I don't know if you watch those. She's such a brilliant, she's a convert to Catholicism, and she's just so brilliant, a writer, and she hates clowns. She hates them. She doesn't want to, if she puts something in, she did one Joan of Arcadia episode with a clown, and she said it's because she wanted to show profound, profound fear. Here are other dimensions of horror. The satanic itself is almost a subgenre. For those of you who saw The Pope's Exorcist, it's about a priest named Father Amorth, Father Gabriel Amorth. He was a priest of our society in Italy. Our work is in communications, but he never quite found a niche until he started editing a magazine about our Blessed Mother. And from that, he became, somehow there was a link there to an exorcism or something, and he was asked to become an exorcist in the Diocese of Rome. He asked permission, and he was given that assignment. I don't really know how many exorcisms he performed. Evidently, it was in the tens of thousands. He passed away in 2017, right after Frieden, who made The Exorcist, made a documentary about Father Gabriel Amorth, and you can find it on Amazon, I think. So he was happy when anybody made a film about the devil, because he said, we need to believe in the devil. We need to believe that evil is real. And anybody who would make light of the devil in a film, he had no time for that. But he didn't mind that films were made about the devil. So now let's talk about the little c Catholic. Is the story human? It's about the human person, the human family, or the family itself. It takes place in a community. If it doesn't have a context of a family or a community, you almost can't create the relationships of terror that you need for terror, because isolation is one of the main elements of fear and horror and terror. So ethics and morality are often changed. Did anybody see The Exorcism of Emily Rose? Okay, in some horror movies, they do not take care to be modest with female figures. But Scott Derrickson in The Exorcism of Emily Rose was really very careful about not exploiting the supposed victims in his films. And that's, I mean, if you're paying attention, you start to notice these things and to think well of some filmmakers, that they take the time, the care to do that. Social justice is a human reality, a human issue, something we strive for, something that is often offended. And so in it, the Stephen King story especially, you find all of these elements and you find them challenged and offended and sinned against, people who are sinned against. Bias and social class is often present because the context for the devil to come in a horror film, or well, horror to come in, or the devil to come into a horror film, is often going to be through sins of these type. So Catholic big C, God is going to be present in some way, or the divine will be present. There will be images of God used. What were we watching? I was just watching something, and somebody was holding a rosary, or we were talking about a Hitchcock film. Hitchcock put a rosary. Let's see. I need to talk right into the top of it, I guess. God's providence will often be questioned or will come to the aid, to the rescue of the person. Creation will be askewed. The universe will go out of sorts. Prayer will be invoked. There will be values and virtues presented as we confront the evil in these films. The divine and the human will be in tension, but also in union. Jesus will be present, and some people believe that transcendence is another necessary component to a genuine horror film, but especially in movies about the devil.
We need to pray now. And whatever happens, whatever you may see or hear, keep your eyes forward and don't stop praying. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu mulieribus, benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostris. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu mulieribus, benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei.
Lord Jesus, in your holy name, I bind all evil spirits to this fire. Protect us from evil with your holy light.
Forgive me, Father, for the sin I'm about to commit.
We're here to investigate the death of a nun.
The Abbey has a long history. Not all good.
Hello. What does it say?
Gannon's here. Violet, the Defiler.
Whatever happens, whatever you may see or hear, don't stop praying.
Let me out!
The nun.
So that movie made a lot of money. So they just made another one, another sequel, part of the Conjuring universe. When The Exorcism of Emily Rose came out, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in Hollywood, they give out, Los Angeles, they give out tickets, free tickets to what they call recruited audiences. So before the film is released, they want to test it with just people. They can give tickets out and say you want to come see a film, but they just have to fill out a card about their opinion of the film. And often they'll make edits based on those opinions. So I went to see, I went as a member of the press, I was invited to the screening at Century City, if any of you have ever been there. And I went with a member of Catholics in Media Associates, who's a screenwriter, walked in, and people were a little nervous, almost full. They turned around and they saw me and they go, "Oh, a nun." And I went, and I just started laughing. And people started laughing and I said, "Do you all want a blessing?" And they said, "Yes." So I gave them a blessing. Sorry, Bishop, I just did it. I don't know. I assume it worked. But anyway, that was fun. So then I went to Mexico City for the International Press Day for The Nun. And I took bottles of holy water, a bottle of holy water, and some rosaries. And when I got into the screening, I was around some people that I knew, but this was international, and I didn't know a lot of people. And so I just said to the people around me, "I brought some holy water, you want some?" And they go, "Yes." We were in a Dominican monastery from the 17th century that the state had now made it into a national park. It was really creepy, and it was at night, and it was cold. So they even recreated a cemetery just so we could take a tour afterwards. It was lovely. So, and it was a 2-night event. They put so much into this, and it worked. It did. So the holy water worked. Then when another version, a film from the Conjuring universe came out, I think it was an Annabelle film, I went in Hollywood, and for this one I really prepared. I made up little bottles of holy water and little plastic rosaries to give out to people, because I said, you know what, they'll take it from me. They won't take it from a secular person, but I'm a nun. And a lot of these people know me too. So went in, and I said, look, everybody, I brought rosaries and holy water. Anybody want some? Of course, there's always takers. But I saved it for at the end. The director was speaking to us, and he's one that I asked. Again, he was the first one, actually. Did you do any research yourself, or did you just watch all the other devil movies? And he said, I just watched all the other devil movies. So I walked up to him. I gave him a bottle of holy water and a rosary, and I said, you really shouldn't mess with the devil unprepared. And I don't even think I don't even know if he was religious in any way. He was just he just liked horror films. So anyway, that's part of my mission of evangelization in Hollywood, was to help people get through their fears. So just about at the end here, this is people again talking about, can we become comfortable about the religious dimensions of horror? And we can if we speak about transcendence, about thinking about, well, transcendence is a hard word to define, actually, but if we think of the supernatural, if we think of God's presence, if we think of God's presence in our daily life, and within the horrors that we face, we each have our own, don't we? So here's the Passion of the Christ, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. After the trailer.
Adonai. Adonai.
Did it work before? Did you try it? I didn't try it all the way through. Oh, it did? Okay. So, in the Passion of Christ, we find all the conventions of horror. And I think as we read the Gospels, we see the devil is very present in the Gospels and in the life of Christ. So, but individuals in a state of chaos. Now, Jesus himself is not in chaos, but he's starting to feel abandoned by, of course, the apostles. And then when he gets to the cross, he cries out to his Father. But around him, the world is in chaos. There's great suffering that he is getting ready for, and he knows is coming. The cosmos is in disarray. It's very well shown in the film, especially with the two thieves on the cross. You know, you get the sky and everything. The loss of control, Jesus lost all control, but he regains it in the end, of course, in the resurrection, which we don't see here, except a hint of it at the end of the movie. But the physical, psychological, and spiritual isolation is really tangible in this film. Have you all seen it? I would imagine most people have seen it, right? Fear. I think Jesus was justly afraid of what he was going to face. Vulnerability, and he certainly struggled with supernatural forces. But he also knew that his role, his self-awareness, his self-knowledge of that he was the Redeemer, he was sacrificing himself, and he was going to restore order that would transcend the horror, would pass through it, and restore life to some kind of normalcy and being improved. The Passion of the Christ has all these, and there's formulaic motifs and tropes. You get the music, the grotesque, the children, remember the children with playing around the thieves, the weather. This is when the nature goes into chaos. Okay, we can't smell, but we get the character's reaction to decay when the crows are picking out the eyes of the thieves. So these are all in the Passion of the Christ, but these are all common motifs to horror films in general. I think the loss of control, isolation, abandonment, those are what lead us to be afraid even in our seats, because we too have experienced that probably at some point, symbols as well. So Scott Derrickson, anyone who finds horror cinema fundamentally immoral either doesn't watch it or doesn't understand it. It's perfectly fine to say that you don't like the genre, but you don't like to be scared by movies, that you don't like to be scared by movies. But if you're wise, you will respect it. That's what I meant about, you don't have to like horror, but do you respect it? He's very much a Christian. He was, I think, Baptist maybe, and then his family became Episcopalian. But I think he's on a journey, continues to be on a journey. So he wants us to confront our own fears. The people who don't like horror probably don't want to face their own fears. Well, it feels wrong to confront the severe darkness that is in ourselves and in our world. Horror is too challenging for them. It is a genre of non-denial. So when you face horror, you can't deny it anymore. Then Craig Detweiler is another great friend of mine, another person who moved from one Protestant religion into the Episcopalian Church. And by the way, Catholicism lends itself completely, visually, to horror, especially to exorcism and devil movies, because it represents the spiritual and the other world. So the worst horror films revel in bloodlust, engage in fetishism of evil, but that's not what this is about. There's plenty of violence, horror, and terror in the Bible. Apocalyptic images in Scripture remind us that sometimes it takes strong prophetic visions to wake us from our slumber. Horror, at its best, offer a cautionary tale designed to shock us into self-recognition, to look into ourselves. So isn't that interesting? We're talking about the spiritual life here. We're not just talking about being Catholic, but being profoundly Catholic, in the sense that the spiritual life matters to us.
There's something wrong with the school. Something doesn't feel right.
Sophie,
There's something wrong with the school. I think this doesn't feel right. That's not meant to be.
Sophie, what happened? What did you see?
I think there's something. That's not meant to be.
What did you see?
I saw a nun. She's standing there.
This thing, it's come back for me.
This demon was once an angel. Rejected by God. Stripped of power.
This thing, it's come back for me.
This demon was once an angel. Rejected by God. Stripped of power. Send that thing
It wants that
back
power
to hell.
It's okay to be scared. I'm scared too.
You send that thing back to hell.
So that's the nun number 2. Okay. This is Wes Craven, and he's talking here about how he wanted a certain end to his movie On a Nightmare on Elm Street, and then they changed it on him. Trying to account for something in human nature, in the human race, that had been there since day one and went all the way back to Cain and Abel. One half of humanity rising up to club the other, running right up to the events of the world today. We have to be aware that within the pure hero is the potential to be a real villain, and within any villain there is the capacity for elements of humor, tenderness, vulnerability, and love, but also the opposite. So I think we can end it there. And did you ever wonder why people in these films have all day when the sun's out to go investigating, but they wait till night to do it? I never got that. So Dom, what do you think? We could turn this off now or go back to the first slide.
Actually, Sister, could you progress all the way to the end of the slideshow? Would that be okay?
Whatever you...
Oh, it's almost at the end. Oh,
should
we
be
could have
one
finished.
more after that. There we go.
Ah.
So there is a QR code. If you'd like to ask any questions, you can scan the QR code. We'll look at it and pass a few questions on. But for those of you that are wondering, why is Mr. Piranti up here? Mr. Piranti is here because he is our resident horror expert, and we're going to have a little bit of a conversation for a few minutes between Sister Rose and Mr. Piranti. So.
I got it. No, we got it. You just start talking. We got to watch. Yeah.
So I got a ladle.
You have a question, huh?
Testing. Okay. So it's 50th year anniversary of The Exorcist, and we saw those wonderful shoes over there. With the new Exorcist coming out, and I guess we'll get to that in a minute, but what would you say to somebody who is concerned about it being immoral, sinful to watch that movie?
I know that's one of the biggest complaints that I always got when I reviewed a film for St. Anthony Messenger or anywhere. I would get letters that saying, how can you even talk about a film that is inherently sinful? But it goes back to the fact, have you watched it? Do you really understand what horror is, what it's talking about? It might be about sin, but it's not necessarily sinful in itself. So I don't think unless you go into those other types of films like Grindhouse and, where they're just, as Craig Detweiler said in his quote, unless they're just messing around with blood and terror for its own sake. Mm-hmm. They're not really telling a story with meaning. Well, that's one thing. Otherwise, I don't think they're inherently sinful at all.
Yeah. And I guess we were I was told by the horror club about a couple of the recent reviews of the new Exorcist that we chatted a little bit about last night. They weren't so hot. But you...
What didn't they like about it?
Let's see.
Okay.
So I'll pull them up for us. So I pulled these. This is what I got. So
we're going to filter them here. So we're trying to combine some of them here. So there's a number of them coming through.
No, these are the comments on The Exorcist.
This is Rotten Tomatoes.
Go for it.
So it's truly embarrassing how little imagination is flexed all around. It trots out Burstyn for continuity, credibility, treats her with stunning disrespect. Not ambitious to be interesting, not power enough to get under your skin. If it's all about devotion to spiritual faith, it's failure to live up to the power of the first film, which makes zealots of even the most cynical moviegoers borders on sacrilege. And there's more got me a little sad. I was thinking, well...
Yeah, they sound kind of grumpy there.
Yeah.
So I think film critics do get it wrong sometimes. And they don't read what people are going to get out of it. On the other hand, if their expectations were dashed by the film, that's why they didn't like it, because it didn't live up to their preconceived expectations. And fair enough, because they built it up as being like the next best thing. And it obviously wasn't to these purists, shall we say.
Yeah. I'm still going to watch it in a couple days. I can
I
let you
bet
know.
you can't wait, huh?
Okay, we got a couple here. Just want to put both of these out there. There's a couple themes out here. As far as if you liked any horror films, what would be one that you really, really liked? And then another one, I'm just going to use the phrasing here because are there any films that grind your gears, upset you? A student used that nice expression. Anything that grinds your gears, and what ones do you like?
So I like Stephen King in general. I do. I just like him because there's substance to his movies. Hard to read his books because they go on forever. But I like the film versions of most of his work. And there's meaning to it. There's substance. And he'll deny it that he's a Christian, but his wife is Catholic. And his kids are he was raised a Christian. It comes out. I don't think you can deny it. So you find things there that it resonates with me. So I would say I will watch a Stephen King horror film. And there's a new series, I think, on Netflix. But I haven't started it yet. What was the other part of the question?
And what films would grind your gears, like upset you?
Well, the lazy ones, the ones that go back to the same old tropes and don't offer us anything new to look at. So the Pope's Exorcist didn't really, well, okay, Russell Crowe saved that movie, just so you know, because parts of it were not that great. But the fact that they went to the Inquisition, they went to something in church history to look for of the devil's entry into the Spanish castle. Well, that I can handle. But when they just deliver this, like after the first Conjuring movie, I wasn't interested. They did the first Nun up very big, but who sends a novice to figure out why a nun in a monastery in Romania killed herself or died? A novice? With a priest? It doesn't make any sense. Unless she had a PhD in demonology, which I don't think she did. She's like 12 years old. So, you know, when it goes to the extent where it just looks lazy, I don't like it. And I gripe extensively.
I love that.
What advice would you give, for children who like, a number of us were talking earlier today about we'd watch movies, horror movies, and our parents were not always sure it was a good idea to watch them. And what advice might you give, for many of us who babysit children, work with students, you can't control what people watch, but how do you walk them through it to make it some meaning?
For me, if I can watch it first, I like to watch it first before I would never recommend something without watching it first. I might say I'm going to see it because it looks interesting, but I'm not going to send people to something I haven't seen. Or if I'm with students, college students who are mature and can discern, I would go with them as long as they promised that we would go somewhere and have coffee and talk about it afterwards. That would work for me. But parents with children, here's the thing. If they say no to their kids, that they can't go see it, and parents out there know this, I was a kid once, I know this, that you'll go see it anyway if your parents say no. Your parents they think they can control you, but they probably can't. You will see it at your friend's house when it comes out on a streaming version. It's much better for the parents. If the kid really wants to see it, take the kid. But then look at the ratings too. Look at what the content is. How old is your child? I know this wonderful mom in Wyoming. We belonged to the same catechetical media group for many years. Her daughter, when she was 12, she was really sharp, and she had a friend, this other kid, and he really liked films, and they would ask to go to some R-rated films. R-rated doesn't mean bad. R-rated means mature. 17 and below need a parent, or they need a letter, right? They're in a small town in Wyoming. So when Laura would go and ask her mother if she and her friend could go to this certain movie, the mother would say, why? You're going to talk to me about it after. To this day, Laura's like 30 now. When she goes to see something and she thinks her mom would, really like to talk about it, she'll call her. She lives in Colorado, her mom lives in Wyoming. They have created a connection and a relationship. But it takes time to develop that kind of a relationship. Controlling your kid, you have to give them the motivations as to why you don't want them to see it. But if you can go with them, that would be the best thing. That's what ratings are for. Information for guidance. Adults don't need to, most adults are afraid of R-rated movies. R-rated movies are for kids. I mean, the ratings are for kids, not for adults. They're for information for you if you want content analysis, but it doesn't tell you what the movie means. That's what we want to know as adults, is what does the movie mean? Not how many bad words or bad scenes or evil does it portray, right?
Yeah.
When you agree.
Oh, 100%.
Tell me, talk to me about that.
Yeah, I have my two little guys, 11 and 7, and we have a couple tough points. They're not ready for The Exorcist, and there's no way. My wife makes sure of that too. But we have, they have such an interest because I always had the interest and a love for it. And they might want to start reading one of the books soon. I tried Poltergeist. This is my mistake. Poltergeist said PG. I didn't think I did exactly what you said not to do. I was like, PG. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it. And it was 1980. It was a while ago when it was made. And there was, I had to explain a parent smoking marijuana first, and then, yeah, it didn't work too well. But it definitely is an experience that I'm hoping we could connect with, even if they appreciate it but don't like it. And I'll dive in with your blessing. I'll dive in.
I don't know. One time I was at my sister's house, and she has two little boys. One was 7 at the time, 6 or 7, and the other one was 8 or 9. And the little one comes home from playing at their friend's house, and she says, "Max, why did you come home?" And he said, "Because Jake and Tommy were watching the movie you said not to watch." And she said, "Oh, that's so good that you came home." And I said, "Max, why did your mom say not to watch it?" She said, "Because it was inappropriate." And I said, "Max, what does inappropriate mean?" "I don't know." You have to remember you're talking to kids, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you can see the movie first, it's always the better thing. Better judgment there.
Okay, we are going to, it's better to leave people wanting more from you, and you're going to hang around for a little bit. So, but we're going to stop right here. Lots of questions were coming in about some of your favorites and questions about why some producers go the cheap route to portray religion or faith, money. Okay, there you go. That answers that one. But anyway, Professor Pacatte, thank you for being such a great backup. And Sister Rose, wonderful to have you. So thank you very much. And Potter, thank you.